Readings of Almighty God's Words. Exposing Antichrists.
Item 4. They exalt and testify about themselves. Some people have the disposition of an antichrist and often reveal certain corrupt dispositions. But at the same time as having such revelations, they also reflect upon and know themselves and are able to accept and practice the truth. And after a time, change can be seen in them. They are possible objects of salvation. There are those who, on the outside, seem capable of forsaking things, expending themselves, suffering hardship and paying a price. But in their nature essence, they are averse to the truth and hate it. When you fellowship on the truth with them, they are averse to it and antagonistic. They doze off and fall asleep during gatherings and sermons. They find them boring, and even if they do understand what they're hearing, they don't put it into practice. There are others who appear to listen in earnest to sermons, but their hearts do not thirst for the truth, and their attitude toward God's words is that they evaluate them as a kind of spiritual knowledge or theory. And so, no matter how many years they have been a believer, or how many of God's words they have read, or how many sermons they have heard, there is no change in their view toward pursuing status and esteeming power, or in their attitude of being averse to the truth, hating the truth, and resisting God. They are archetypal antichrists. If you expose them by saying, "What you're doing is trying to win people over," and when you exalt and testify about yourself, you are misleading people and vying for status with God. These are the actions of Satan and antichrists. Are they capable of accepting such condemnation? Definitely not. What do they think? I am right to act this way, so this is how I act. No matter how you condemn me, no matter what you say, and no matter how right it may seem, I am not going to give up this way of doing things, this desire, this pursuit. It's determined then. These are antichrists. Nothing you say can alter their views, intent, agenda, ambitions, or desires. This is the archetypal nature essence of antichrists. No one can change them. No matter how people fellowship on the truth with them, or what language or wording they use, no matter the time, space, or context, nothing can change them. No matter how their environment changes, no matter how the people, events, and things around them change, and no matter how the times change, or how great the signs and wonders God shows, how much grace God bestows on them, or even how God punishes them, the way they see things and their agenda will never change, and their ambition and desire to wrest power will never change. Their way of comporting themselves and interacting with others will never change, nor will their attitude of hating the truth and God. When others point out that what they are doing is exalting and testifying about themselves and trying to mislead people, they change their manner of speaking to one with which others can't find fault or discern. They use even more crafty means to carry on their management and achieve their aim of ruling and controlling God's chosen people. This is what is manifested in an antichrist, and it is engendered by the essence of an antichrist. Even if God told them they would be punished, that their end had come, that they were accursed, could this change their essence? Could it change their attitude toward the truth? Could it change their love of status, fame, and gain? It could not. Turning people who have been corrupted by Satan into people with normal humanity who worship God is the work of God. It can be achieved. But is it possible to turn demons, people who are dressed in human skin but whose essence is satanic and who are hostile to God, into normal people? That would be impossible. God does not do this kind of work. These people are not included among those God saves. How then does God define such people? They belong to Satan. They are not objects of God's selection or salvation. God does not want such people. No matter how long they have believed in God, how much they have suffered, or what they have accomplished, their agenda will not change. They will not give up their ambitions or desires, much less will they relinquish their motivation and craving to vie for status and for people with God. Such people are genuine antichrists. Some people say, "Isn't that antichrists can do evil and resist God, just them being momentarily muddle-headed?" If God were to show some signs and wonders, or punish them a little, so that they could see God, wouldn't they then be able to acknowledge and submit to God? Wouldn't they then be able to accept and acknowledge that God is truth and not vie for status with God anymore? Isn't it the case that they have no faith because they haven't witnessed God showing any signs and wonders or seen God's spiritual body? And so they're very weak and then they get hoodwinked by Satan? No, that is not the case. Antichrist's ambitions, desires, and essence are absolutely distinct and different from someone being temporarily hoodwinked and foolish and not understanding the truth. Antichrists inherently possess a satanic nature, and they are averse to the truth and hate the truth from birth. They are Satans who are irreconcilable with God, who resist God and vie with God till the end, and they are living Satans who wear human skin. Such people are defined as antichrists according to their nature essence. And so what role can they play, and what things can they do in God's house? They disrupt, disturb, demolish, and destroy God's work. These people cannot help but do these things in God's house. This is the kind of thing they are. They have a satanic nature, and it's just like wolves getting in amongst the flock, intent on devouring the sheep. This is their one and only purpose. Speaking from another perspective, why does God allow these people to appear in His house? It is so that God's chosen people can grow in discernment. No one has seen what the devil Satan looks like, what the essence of its actions is, what its specific revelations are, or how it misleads people and opposes God in the world. When the devil Satan is mentioned, they feel it to be abstract and empty, that it is not concrete enough. "Where is Satan?" they ask. "In the air," comes the reply. So, how big is Satan then? What miracles does it perform specifically? How specifically does it oppose God? what is its nature essence? They feel it's all very abstract, vague, and empty. However, through the manifestations and revelations of antichrists, they can match up these things to what Satan does and its nature essence. And then it all becomes concrete and is no longer abstract or empty. Once it all becomes concrete, people can then hear it speak, see its behavior, and attentively discern its nature essence. In this way, do they not then feel that the devil Satan's essence of which God speaks becomes more concrete and real, and they can make a practical comparison? Some people are of immature stature and don't understand the truth, and through some momentary foolishness, they get hoodwinked by antichrists and misled, and so they leave for a year or so. When they return to God's house, they realize that it doesn't feel good to follow Satan. When these people first begin to follow antichrists, they feel they have sufficient reason and great confidence, saying, "The above doesn't want us to follow antichrists, but we'll follow them all the same, and one day we'll be proven right." The result of this is that after some time, they feel they've lost the work of the Holy Spirit. They're unable to feel any confirmation in their hearts. To them, it feels as though God is no longer with them, that their faith has lost its meaning and direction, and gradually they come to have more and more discernment of antichrists. They previously thought that antichrists really understood the truth, and by following them, they couldn't go wrong in their faith. But now, they see that antichrists have serious problems, that antichrists speak as though they understand the truth, yet they never practice the truth. This is a fact. They see they have followed antichrists for such a long time and have gained no truth, and that it really is so dangerous to continue following antichrists. And so they feel regret. They reject the antichrists, and they become willing to return to God's house. Once God's house has taken such people back, those people are asked to recount their experience, and they say, "That antichrist was so good at misleading people. Back then, they seemed right no matter how I thought of them. But the result was that I gained nothing, understood no truth, and came to possess not even a hint of truth reality after following them for over a year. I wasted precious time. I've really suffered so great a loss." This experience of failure becomes their most profound memory. After they return to God's house, the more they listen to sermons, the more they come to understand the truth, and the brighter their hearts become. When they think back on the time they spent following that antichrist and see how they've suffered loss, they come to feel that antichrists really are Satan's and are fundamentally without truth, that only God is truth, and they don't dare to follow another human being again. When it comes time to select a leader again, they cast their vote very carefully, thinking, "If I cast my vote for a certain person, then most likely an antichrist will be selected. If I don't cast my vote for a certain person, then perhaps an antichrist won't be selected. I must be careful and evaluate people according to principles." Aren't their actions now based on principles and standards? This is a good thing. Some people are misled by antichrists and say, "Why has this happened to us?" Have we been laid aside by God? Does He not care about us anymore? In such a situation as that, would you consent if God told you not to follow antichrists? No, you wouldn't. You would still insist on following them, and all God could do would be to allow you to do it and then teach you a lesson using facts. After following antichrists for some time, you suddenly come to your senses and see that you have suffered loss in your life. And only then do you feel remorse and become willing to reject antichrists and return before God once again. Fortunately for you, God is tolerant and merciful, and He still wants you. If He didn't, then you'd be totally finished. You'd have no more chances to attain salvation. There is no good end to following antichrists. You must see antichrists clearly and recognize them correctly. You must know how to discern the various manifestations of antichrists, and at the same time, you should clearly know that there are many things which your own nature essence has in common with antichrists. This is because you all belong to mankind which has been corrupted by Satan, and the only difference is that antichrists are completely under Satan's control, and they have become Satan's accomplices and speak on its behalf. You also belong to corrupt mankind, but you are able to accept the truth and have hope of attaining salvation. However, there are many things in terms of essence that you have in common with antichrists, and your methods and agendas are the same. It is only that once you have heard the truth and listened to sermons, you are able to change course, and being able to change course determines that you have hope of attaining salvation. This is the difference between you and antichrists. Therefore, when I'm exposing antichrists, you should also make a comparison and recognize what things you and antichrists have in common, and which manifestations, dispositions, and aspects of essence you share with them. By doing this, won't you then be able to better know yourself? If you always feel antagonistic, believing that you are not an antichrist, feeling intense hatred for antichrists, and are unwilling to make this comparison or reflect on yourself and understand what path you're following, then what will the consequence be? With a satanic disposition, you are very likely to become an antichrist. This is because no antichrist purposefully seeks to become an antichrist and then becomes one. It's because they don't pursue the truth, and as a matter of course, they end up following the path of an antichrist. Aren't all those in the religious world who don't love the truth antichrists? Every single person who doesn't reflect on and understand their own nature essence, and who believes in God according to their notions and imaginings, is an antichrist. Once you have embarked upon the path of an antichrist, once you gain status, and combined with the fact that you have some gifts and learning, and everyone admires you, then as the time you spend working lengthens, you come to hold a place in people's hearts. As the work you're responsible for grows in scope, you come to lead more and more people. You gain more and more capital, and then you become a bona fide Paul. Is all this up to you? You had no plan to follow this path, but how come you unknowingly embarked upon the path of an antichrist? One important reason for this is that if you don't pursue the truth, you will most certainly pursue status and prestige. You will engage in your own business until finally, without being aware of it, you will be following the path of an antichrist. If people who are following the path of an antichrist don't change course in time, then when they gain status, they will quite possibly become antichrists. This result is inevitable. If they can't see this matter clearly, then they are in danger, because everyone possesses corrupt dispositions and everyone loves reputation and status. If they don't love the truth, then they are very prone to falling due to reputation and status. Without the judgment and chastisement of God, everyone would follow the path of an antichrist and fall due to reputation and status. And this is something no one can deny. You say, I only have these revelations every now and then. They're just temporary manifestations. Even though I have the same essence as that of antichrists, I'm still distinct from antichrists because I don't have such great ambitions as they do. Also, while I'm doing my duty, I'm constantly reflecting on myself, feeling remorse, and seeking the truth, and I act in accordance with truth principles. Judging by my behavior, I'm not an antichrist, and I don't wish to be one. Therefore, I can't possibly become an antichrist. You may not be an antichrist right now, but can you ensure that you won't follow the path of an antichrist and become an antichrist? Can you make such a guarantee? No, you can't. So, how can you make such a guarantee? The one and only way to do this is to pursue the truth. How then should you pursue the truth? Do you have a way to do this? First, you must acknowledge the fact that you share the same disposition essence as antichrists. Although you aren't an antichrist right now, for you, what is the most deadly and dangerous thing? It is that you possess the same nature essence as antichrists. Is this a good thing for you? It certainly isn't. This is deadly for you. Therefore, while you're listening to these sermons exposing Antichrist's various manifestations, don't think that these things have nothing to do with you. This is the wrong attitude to have. So then, what kind of attitude should you have to accept these facts and manifestations? Compare yourself to them. Acknowledge that you have an Antichrist's nature essence, and then examine yourself to find out which of your manifestations and revelations are identical to those of Antichrists. First, acknowledge this fact. Don't try to disguise yourself or wrap yourself up. The path you walk is the path of an Antichrist, so it is in accordance with the facts to say you are an Antichrist. It's just that God's house hasn't yet defined you as such and is giving you a chance to repent. That's all. Do you understand? First, accept and acknowledge this fact. And then what you have to do is come before God and ask Him to discipline you and hold you in check. Don't depart from the light of God's presence or leave His protection. And in this way, you will be held in check by your conscience and reason when you do things. And you will also have God's words to illuminate you, lead you, and keep you in check. Moreover, you will have the work of the Holy Spirit to guide you, to arrange the people, events, and things around you, to serve as warnings for you and to discipline you. How does God warn you? God acts in many ways. Sometimes, God will cause you to have an obvious feeling in your heart, allowing you to clearly realize that you need to be held in check, that you cannot act willfully, that if you act wrongly, then you will bring shame upon God and make a fool of yourself, and so you restrain yourself. Isn't this God protecting you? This is one way. Sometimes, God will reproach you inside yourself and present clear words to you to tell you that acting in that way is shameful, that He detests it, that it is accursed. That is, He uses clear words to reproach you so that you make a comparison with yourself. What is God's aim in reproaching you in this way? He does it to make your conscience feel something, and when you feel something, you will consider the impact, consequences, and your own sense of shame, and you will exercise some restraint in your actions and practices. Once you have had many such experiences, you will find that although these corrupt dispositions are rooted inside people, when people become able to accept the truth and clearly see the truth of their own corrupt dispositions, they can purposefully rebel against their flesh. When people become able to put the truth into practice, their satanic disposition is cleansed and changed. Man's satanic disposition is not indestructible or immutable. When you become able to accept the truth and put the truth into practice, your satanic disposition will naturally be broken down and replaced. Once you taste how sweet it is to put the truth into practice, you will think, I was so shameless before. No matter how barefaced my words, or how I exalted myself to make others worship me, I felt no shame and had no awareness afterward. Now, I feel that acting in that way was wrong and I lost face, and I feel as though many eyes are upon me. This is God's doing. He gives you a feeling, and you would feel as though you are reproaching yourself, and then you won't commit evil or stick to your own path. Unknowingly, your ways of exalting and testifying about yourself grow fewer and fewer. You increasingly exercise self-restraint, and you feel more and more that by acting in this way, your heart is at ease and your conscience is at peace. This is living in the light, and there is no longer any need to be on tenterhooks or to use lies or pleasant words to camouflage yourself. In the past, you lied and kept the lies going every day to protect your reputation. Every time you told a lie, you had to then keep that lie going, so afraid that you might give the game away. The result of this was that you told more and more lies, and later had to put in great effort and rack your brains to keep your lies going. You were living a life that resembled neither that of humans nor that of demons, and so exhausting. Now, you are seeking to be an honest person, and you can open your heart and speak things that are real. There is no need for you to tell lies and keep your lies going every day. You're not constrained by lies anymore. You suffer much less. You live a life that is increasingly relaxed, free, and liberated. In your innermost heart, you enjoy feelings of peace and joy. You are tasting the sweetness of this life. And while you are tasting the sweetness of this life, your inner world is no longer deceitful, wicked, or false. Instead, you are now willing to come before God. You pray to God and seek the truth when you have an issue. You are able to discuss it with others when you have an issue, and you no longer act unilaterally or arbitrarily. You feel more and more that the way you used to do things was contemptible, and you don't want to do things like that anymore. Instead, you act in whichever way accords with the truth, with reason, and with God's intentions. The way you act has changed. When you are able to achieve these things, doesn't that mean that you have departed from the path of an antichrist? And when you have departed from the path of an antichrist, doesn't that mean that you have embarked upon the path to attaining salvation? When you have embarked upon the path to attaining salvation and often come before God, your attitude, intent, perspective, your life goals and direction in life are no longer in opposition to God. You begin to love positive things, and you begin to love fairness, righteousness, and truth. When this happens, your innermost heart and thoughts have begun to transform. When you have embarked upon the path to attaining salvation, can you still become an antichrist? Can you still intentionally resist God? No, you can't, and you are out of danger now. Only by entering this state will people be on the right track of faith in God, and only by seeking and accepting the truth in this way can they cast off the troubles, the control, and the disturbance caused by their satanic nature and antichrist nature. Have you now embarked upon the right path in life of pursuing the truth? If not, hurry and strive hard to get on it. If you can't get onto the path in pursuit of the truth, you'll still be living in danger. All those who walk the path of antichrists are in danger of being eliminated at any time. Most people, while they're doing their duty, are battling against their own antichrist disposition, exhausted from fighting for reputation, status, money, and interests, weary in mind and body. So, when can this problem be resolved? Only by pursuing the truth and being able to accept the truth can you gradually cast off the constraints and bonds of your antichrist nature essence, and cause your satanic disposition to gradually weaken and vanish. And in so doing, you will have hope of freeing yourself from the power of Satan. Have you wept in private because of these things, feeling that you can never change, never love the truth, and never handle things according to truth principles, and hating yourself so much that you slap your own face and weep bitter tears? Have you done this many times? If someone hasn't done this a lot, doesn't that make them numb? Such a person can never perceive that they're corrupt, and still they believe they work well, that they have caliber and talent, that they understand many truths, and that they can handle many things according to principles, feeling very assured. Such a person is numb. They think they're great, and this is very dangerous for them. Can you now really perceive that your stature is too small, that you are far from casting off your corrupt dispositions, and that you're still in the danger zone? People who don't pursue the truth don't have this perception. Neither do people who are without the work of the Holy Spirit. Most people are in a daze and muddled. thinking that as long as they do their duty in an orderly way and don't do evil, then they are not following the path of antichrists, and that as long as they don't do all kinds of evil, then they are not antichrists. Because of this, most of the time they are in a state of numbness, often feeling pleased with themselves, thinking they're great and that they'll soon attain salvation, and that the path of antichrists has nothing to do with them. Your daily prayers can be used to measure whether you are in this state or not. What do you pray when you come before God every day? If every day you say, "Oh God, I love you. Oh God, I'm willing to submit to you. Oh God, I'm willing to fulfill the commission you've given me. I can do my duty loyally, and I am resolved to satisfy you and be perfected by you. No matter what antichrist manifestations I possess, or how little I know myself, you still love me and wish to save me." Then what manifestation is this? This is numbness. You express only determination, and you have no understanding of your own nature essence whatsoever. You are in the enthusiastic phase, and you are very far from being in possession of the truth reality. How much time goes by before you can say one real prayer, to speak what's in your heart to God, to tell Him your actual situation, to feel peace and joy in your heart, and to feel that you are truly living before God? Tell me, how much time goes by before you can do this one time? 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, or a year? If you've never said one real prayer, and you still pray as people do in the religious world, always saying that you love God, always expressing your determination, always saying the same set phrases, then you are too lacking and you have no truth reality whatsoever. Ordinarily, people who have believed in God for 3 or 5 years don't say such childish and ignorant things when they come before God, because they're certain that they will follow God, and they also have faith, and they already clearly understand the truths of visions about God's work, God's intentions, God's management plan, and the purpose of God's work. What do they mostly pray for when they come before God? One thing is to know themselves, and one is to speak some true words. "Oh God, I have some difficulty today. I've done something that has indebted me to you. I am deficient in some matter, and I ask you to protect me, and to lead, enlighten, and illuminate me." This person begins to say some quite true things that are related to the truth reality, and they no longer say those expressions of determination and slogans which those enthusiastic people who have just begun to believe say. Why don't they say these things? They feel like there's no point in saying such things, that such things cannot meet their inner need for the truth or their need for life entry. Regardless of how many years you have believed for, regardless of whether you go through the motions or you sincerely come before God when praying to Him, how many days out of 10 do you say those empty words and catchphrases? Someone may say, one day, so what do they pray on the other 9 days? If their prayers relate to their duty and life entry, then that's fine. And this shows that they're shouldering some burden toward the truth, toward God's words, and toward their own duty, and that they're no longer so numb. What do I mean by they're no longer so numb? I mean that when matters related to people's corrupt dispositions and various states are mentioned, they feel something and have awareness, and they can understand too. They are able to achieve understanding and comprehension, and they understand these matters no matter how they are explained, and are almost in step with them. This shows that they have gained some stature. What manifestations do numb people display? Every day they live like that, not striving and not making progress. And that's why they always say the same old things when they pray to God. They don't understand life entry at all. They have no spiritual understanding. They feel nothing. They give no reaction, no matter how many sermons they listen to, and no matter how one fellowships on the truth with them. They feel like it's all monotonous and it all means the same. So, do they have anything to say to God? What people will pray and say when they come before God depends on the words in their hearts they want to say to God. And they feel they absolutely have to say these things to God. In your heart, you must at least have your understanding of God's requirements, the difficulties you face, and how you ought to meet God's requirements. If there is nothing in your heart, and all you can do is say some pleasant-sounding words and some slogans and doctrines, and just go through the motions, then that is not prayer. If you've pledged your allegiance all those years, but have done nothing practical at all, and in the end, you are still liable to betray God, deny God, and drop out at any time, then this shows that you are without stature. If when you come before God to pray now, you can mostly keep your relationship with God relevant to God's requirements and your own dispositional change, then your relationship with God will have been established. You will not follow the path of an antichrist, and this means that you will have embarked upon the right track of faith in God. Are you now clear on the various manifestations of antichrists exalting and testifying about themselves, as well as on the definitions of the nature of such behavior? Is there any difference between the manifestations of antichrists and the manifestations of ordinary people's corrupt dispositions? Can you make a comparison when truly encountering an issue? Can you regard antichrist's manifestations as the manifestations of ordinary corrupt people and vice versa? How should you distinguish between these two things? Judging a person's disposition through their consistent manifestations and revelations, and judging their essence from their disposition, is an accurate way to make a definition about them. Antichrists don't accept the truth or exalt God. They just exalt and testify about themselves. This manifestation is exceedingly obvious and prominent, and it is entirely dominated by their satanic nature. Even though ordinary people also exalt and testify about themselves, when you fellowship on the truth with them, they are able to accept it and acknowledge that God is truth, and they can accept the truth. Only change does not happen very quickly or easily for them. This is the difference between antichrists and ordinary people. Now, having said this, does it then become easy to discern between them? Antichrists have a characteristic. When they don't love the truth or deny the truth, do they deny it directly? What method do they employ to deny the truth so that you see they don't acknowledge the truth? They will engage in sophistry to refute you, saying that what you're fellowshipping on is not the truth, and that only what they fellowship on is the truth. For example, they testify about themselves and someone exposes them. And afterward, which manifestations do they display that allow others to affirm that they don't love or accept the truth? Engaging in sophistry and trying to vindicate themselves is one, and there is also concealing the factual truth, and it is that truth that is their agenda. Their agenda is to testify about themselves so that others hold them in high esteem. They won't let you know their agenda. They'll just say false and pleasing things, engage in sophistry, hoodwink you, confuse you, so that in the end you say they're not testifying about themselves, and then they will have achieved their aim. They speak false and pleasing things, engage in sophistry, hoodwink people. They don't acknowledge that they're testifying about themselves. They don't accept you exposing them. They don't accept your reproaches. Much less do they accept being defined in this fact. They don't accept this at all, and even come up with excuses, saying, "That isn't me testifying about myself. There is a reason and a context to me saying that." Saying a few inappropriate things in that situation is entirely normal and is not a problem. Can it be considered as testifying about myself? What's more, I've done all this work, and even though I've earned no merit, I've still suffered to do it. It's not a big deal if some people hold me in high esteem and worship me. They don't think such disgraceful behavior, such a disgusting act, is a big deal. Is this an attitude of accepting the truth? They feel no shame due to these evil deeds, and even think themselves great. This is the essence of evil people. Antichrists believe that exalting and testifying about themselves is entirely appropriate and is what they're supposed to do. They think, I do it because I have this capability. Are other people worthy of doing it? I've earned everyone's support. I've expended so much effort doing church work. I've made such great contributions to God's house and borne so much risk. Is it fair if you give me no reward and no benefit? Isn't God righteous? Doesn't He repay each person according to their actions? So then, don't I deserve everyone's support due to making all these contributions and bearing all this risk? They think that they must get something in return for doing their duty, and that the minimum reward should be everyone's support and being able to enjoy the allegiance, honor, and benefits they deserve. Is this an attitude of accepting the truth? So, what is the truth here? For instance, you say to them, no matter how much they suffer, people are created beings, and they should suffer because they have corrupt dispositions. Suffering while doing one's duty is just one way in which people suffer. No matter how capable we are or what gifts we possess, we shouldn't expect any reward or try to make deals with God. Is this not the truth? This is the most fundamental truth created beings should understand. However, can this truth be found in their philosophies for worldly dealings and in their thoughts and views? Do they accept this truth when they hear it? No, they don't. What is their attitude? They believe that being in God's house is like being in the world, that they must be rewarded according to their labor, that they must get something for performing their duty, and that if they bear some risk, then they should receive the benefits and grace they deserve. Performing one's duty is the responsibility and obligation of every single person, and remuneration doesn't come into it. Do antichrists accept this truth? What is their attitude? They are scornful and antagonistic, saying, "You idiots, you even accept this. Is that the truth? That's not the truth. That's just duping people. Fairness and equality among people. That's the truth." What kind of thing is this to say? This is the logic and the heresy and fallacy of Satan. And can they mislead those who don't understand the truth? They can mislead them so easily. Some people are weak. They don't understand the truths related to performing one's duty. Plus, they are lacking in caliber and comprehension ability, and they don't have much faith. And when they hear such things, they feel they make perfect sense, and they think, "Yes, indeed. How could I have been so stupid?" I've finally encountered someone who understands today. What they say is right. These people only listen to and accept things that sound reasonable and in line with their notions. They don't approach God's words according to the principle that God's words are the truth. Whether God's words accord with people's feelings, with people's thinking and logic, with people's customs and habits, or traditional culture, God's words are final, and every single word of them, from start to finish, is truth. God's words don't need anyone to question or analyze them, and regardless of whether all of mankind believes them to be right or wrong, or whether anyone can accept them, God's words are forever truth. God's words don't need to stand the test of time, nor do they need mankind to verify them through experience. God's words are truth. Is this what antichrists think? They think, God has to be reasonable. What does God's righteousness mean? Isn't it that those who suffer a lot and are highly capable receive great rewards, and that those who suffer little, who aren't very capable, and who make no contribution receive little reward? Does God say this? God doesn't say this. What does God say? God says that performing one's duty is the vocation of every single person, that performing one's duty comes with its own principles, that everyone should perform their duty in accordance with the truth principles, and that this is what created beings are supposed to do. Is there any mention of remuneration here? Any mention of reward? There is no mention of remuneration or reward. It is an obligation. What does obligation mean? An obligation is something people are supposed to do, something for which being rewarded according to one's labor doesn't apply. God never stipulated that someone who performs their duty a lot should receive a great reward, and that someone who performs their duty little or performs it in a way that's no good should receive little reward. God never said such a thing. So, what do God's words say? God says that performing one's duty is the vocation of every single person, and that it is something created beings are supposed to do. this is the truth. Is this how antichrists understand it? How do they treat these words of God? They will treat them in a different way. From the perspective of their own interests, they'll have a distorted interpretation of God's words. To be precise, what they do is tamper with God's words, using their own means and understanding to transform God's words and truth into another interpretation. And what is the nature of such an interpretation? It is of benefit to them. It can mislead people, and it can provoke and entice people. They turn God's words into their manner of speaking, as though they are truths they're expressing. And after God has said something, they have to change the way God says it and the principles of God's words into their own way. Is it still the truth after they've changed it into their own way? No, it isn't. It is a fallacy and heresy. Are you able to discern this matter? After listening to so many sermons, some people have gained some discernment. And what is the essence of the Antichrist's opposition to and denial of the truth?
It is tampering with and having a distorted interpretation of God's words.
And what is their intent in tampering with and having a distorted interpretation of God's words? It is so that people don't accept the truth and instead accept their fallacies and heresies. They misrepresent the truth according to their thinking and logic, their interests and views, and their notions. This is then beneficial to them, and they can also provoke and mislead some people who are foolish and ignorant, and who don't understand the truth. Their words may seem right to you when you first hear them, but if you analyze them carefully, you'll find the ambitions and schemes of Satan lurking within them. What is the purpose of their ambitions and schemes? Their purpose is to benefit themselves, to make their own ways of doing things and behavior tenable, to get people to make a good assessment of them, to change their bad and evil behavior to proper behavior, and ways of doing things which accord with the truth. In this way, they believe that people won't reject them, and God won't condemn them. They may perhaps be able to mislead others, so that people don't reject them, but can they get God to not condemn them? Can man change the essence of God?
No.
This is where antichrists are most stupid. They want to use their silver tongues and their smart brains to think of sort of fallacy and heresy to tamper with the truth, so that their statement can become tenable, and thereby repudiate God's utterances and deny the existence of truth. Isn't this them thinking wrongly? Can they achieve their aim? Some people ask, what can be done when an antichrist misleads some people? If such people really have been misled and are unable to change course, then this means they are exposed and eliminated, and deservedly so. This is them being doomed and unable to escape. They are doomed to die, and God never planned to save people like them. They get into the church under false pretenses and perform some labor and enjoy some grace. And when God doesn't want them anymore, He gives them to Satan. It just so happens that they hear a heresy and fallacy, and upon hearing it, they clap their hands and give it their approval, and then they go off following Satan. What is this? This is using Satan to render service. There is a verse in the book of Revelation that says, "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still." This means people being separated according to their own kind. When it comes to those people who follow antichrists, is this just momentary carelessness on their part? Was it because God wasn't keeping watch? This is them being doomed to die. After associating with such people for a time, you'll see that they don't deserve to be saved. They're too wretched. Judging by their character and their pursuit of the truth, their nature is wicked and averse to the truth, and they don't deserve to be saved. They don't deserve to inherit such tremendous grace from God. If God doesn't give them this grace, then they just won't receive it. And so the most accurate way to summarize them in 3 words is doomed to die.